I'm here to talk to you about my journey with microscopic colitis, lymphocytic colitis specifically. I was diagnosed about 5 months ago, and I've been on a treatment for colitis for since December 4th. And I went to my GI doctor 5 years ago after contracting C. diff and being treated with Flagyl for that. I had 2 rounds of Flagyl actually, and so that was a lot of antibiotics on my system, I realized, all at once. Before I contracted C. diff, I had been able to eat anything my whole life. Could eat anything, drink anything. I never had any health problems at all. So I caught C. diff, I got treated with Flagyl, recovered from that, and about 6 months later, I noticed that I was still having stomach trouble all the time. So I went to my GI doctor. My regular doctor had me do a couple elimination diets, and I did notice that I did really well when I was on an elimination diet, but as soon as I added food back, I started having trouble. One thing I noticed specifically giving me trouble was gluten, so I just didn't eat gluten, but I still was having a lot of trouble, so he got me a referral to a GI doctor. Now, when I saw the GI doctor, it was in the summer, and of course we'd been at the lake and stuff, and the GI doctor told me that he asked what I had noticed. Did I notice anything in particular bothering me? And I said, definitely gluten was something that bothered me. And he actually looked at me like I was nuts, and he said, gluten's in everything. There's no way that you're sensitive to gluten. So just, don't even think about that. And he said, you had a blood test, your doctor did a blood test, you had no trouble with gluten, that's not your problem. So I was like, oh, okay, that's okay. I'm here to find out what is my problem, so that's good to know. And he said, after talking to me for a while and filling my stomach and showing me a diagram of the intestines and talking about water absorption and stuff, he said, well, you probably just swallowed lake water, so I'm going to send you home. If you get blood in your stools, give us a call and I'll get you back in. Well, I had blood in my stools within a month and called, and they said, we can see you in 90 days. And after the way he was so dismissive to me the first time, I just didn't go. I didn't make an appointment. I didn't go. So I did some diets over the years. I did paleo, which I seemed to do well with, but I mainly did well when I was in the elimination steps of the paleo, when very little is added back in. I really like Chris Kressner and his book, The Paleo Cure, and I seemed to do pretty well in the very limited diet with that. So I did that for a couple years, but then I was having more and more trouble. So I had read Wall's protocol book, and so I tried some of her recipes and read her book and tried her diet a little. Well, that was the worst diet for me. Now that I know what I have, it makes sense, since it was based on vegetables and meat, and even cooking the vegetables, I had a lot of trouble. Early on, I couldn't eat a salad. It's like gluten in salad, much dairy, that was obvious. Those kind of things I figured out on my own with no help. So anyway, Walls didn't do too well with me. So then I read about a year later, I read about Gundry and the lectins, and did the lectin-free diet, which didn't seem to help. And then I read the carnivore cure, and I tried a little bit of that, but I always did seem to be okay with meat. But as time went by, there's just less and less that I could eat. And I was very, very strict with everything I was eating because I felt so sick all the time. So that led to eventually in fall of 2020, I just got where I couldn't eat anything, and I was losing weight and sick and having a lot of rectal trouble. And so then I had to go back to the GI. Luckily, when I went back, I saw the nurse practitioner instead of the friendly doctor, and she said, okay, we'll set you up for a colonoscopy. And she set that up, and when I had the cleanse to have the colonoscopy, I felt really good. I went in there to have it the next morning after I did the cleanse, and I was laying there thinking, man, I just feel better than I have felt in 5 years. It was like the best I felt. They did the colonoscopy, didn't bother me at all. Luckily, he had the sense to check for microscopic colitis, since that's what I ended up having. But when I went home the next day after the colonoscopy, I was like, man, I just don't want to eat anything because I feel so good. I just want to keep this good feeling. But eventually, of course, I had to eat something. I was hungry, and I ate very limited. I was on such a limited diet anyway because everything made me feel sick. And of course, I tried low FODMAP, keto, everything. And everything I tried, I was super strict with it too. I didn't cheat because I just felt so sick. I wanted to feel better. So anyway, they call me and I get the results from the colonoscopy, and the nurse said, hey, you actually did have something. You have lymphocytic colitis. And, I'm like, what? I never heard of that. And my grandmother had ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, both. She actually passed away from complications with Crohn's disease at probably in her late 60s, but it skipped my biological mother. She did not have it, and I had been perfectly healthy until I contracted C. diff. So that obviously did trigger that in my genes for that to come out in me, my colitis. So anyway, the nurse told me on the phone, she's like, oh, good news. You just a couple little diet changes for you to do and take Pepto-Bismol 4 tablets a day. I was like, oh, right, great. What is the diet change? And she said, well, don't eat dairy, don't have caffeine, and don't have raw vegetables. And I was like, okay, I already do that. I was like, I haven't had that in over a year. That's, I've been really sick, and I kind of figured it out on my own. I couldn't have those things. And she said, oh, well, the Pepto will definitely help. She's like, it's not a big deal. It's just microscopic colitis. You can look it up. It's pretty manageable, and it's not a big deal. Just take this Pepto. And so I said, okay, so what about gluten? That seems to be my number one trigger. And she's like, oh yeah, you should be able to have gluten. And I said, well, it makes me really sick right away when I eat gluten. And she said, oh, well, maybe don't have gluten then. But doctor will see you. He has an appointment, in a month or whatever. But just take the Pepto, and within 2 weeks, you should feel better. If you don't feel better in 2 weeks, call me back. And I said, okay. I'm pretty sure, though, because, I've already been on this diet, that I might need something else. Is there something else they do if the Pepto doesn't work? She's like, oh, yeah, but it's a drug with lots of side effects, and it doesn't even work long term, so you won't want that, and you probably won't even need it. This is pretty common thing, So I was like, okay. So I hang up. Of course, I take the Pepto. Nothing happens. For 2 weeks, I feel just as bad. Of course, I'm not eating gluten and those other things that I wasn't eating to begin with. But I didn't get feeling any better. And so I called them back in 2 weeks, and they're wanting to call me in a steroid without talking to me about it or anything. And it's COVID too. And she's like, yeah, it'll make you a little more compromised, your immune system. And I was like, well, I'm a teacher and it's COVID. I really don't want to take anything if I don't have to. And she said, well, that's up to you, but this is what the doctor recommends you getting on. And I said, well, I'd like to just wait until my appointment with him and talk to him about it, because I'm not that comfortable just you calling me in this drug. So I go to my appointment a few weeks later with him, and my weight has dropped since my last appointment, which was with the nurse practitioner to schedule the colonoscopy. So when I go in, and he looks at my weight, and he said, oh, you're not doing any better? And I said, no, but I was kind of on that diet already. And he said, well, you must not be following that diet. You must be having caffeine. And I said, no, I'm definitely not having caffeine. All I drink is water, like seltzer water and herbal tea. And he said, tea? That's the reason you're sick. You're drinking tea. Tea has caffeine. And I said, no, it's herbal tea. It doesn't have caffeine. It's herbal tea. And, you know, I haven't had any of the things on that list already. Plus, I can't have gluten, and I haven't had that. And he's like, oh, diet doesn't really matter with this. As long as you're not having those three things, diet doesn't even matter. And he said, I told you to call. Why didn't you call? The nurse had in her notes that you're supposed to call if you weren't any better. And I told him I did call, but, you know, I wanted to try to manage this with diet and get some more information because I didn't want to just take that drug during COVID. And he said, well, how's that working for you? And I was just stunned that he said that to me. So I was like, well, you know, I don't know. My main problem I'm having right now is having some anal fissures that are very, very painful. And I'm having to use a ointment throughout the day, plus, of course, diarrhea that I was used to having, and the weight loss all of a sudden. But the anal fissures were my number one problem. And he said, don't put anything, you cannot put ointment on your anal fissures. He's like, do not do that. You must just use a sitz bath. And I was just like, so devastated when he said that, because I'm a teacher. I'm like, I can't just be going to do a sitz bath. I'm a teacher, and, you know, I have to use the ointment throughout the day because they're so painful. And he just said that will thin the lining of your skin and you'll have worse problems. So I don't want you using the ointments. Don't want you using preparation H. I don't want you using another one, a compound I got from my doctor that had like a numbing agent in it. He really didn't like that. And he told me he did not want me using that. He's going to call me in budesonide, and I'm going to take that, and I will be better. And I will see him in 6 weeks, and I will be fine. And I can just eat what I want. Just don't eat vegetables, dairy, or caffeine. Other than that, diet doesn't matter. Gluten doesn't matter. Nothing matters. So I left there feeling a little defeated, but I had high hopes. You know, we're having a Christmas, we're going somewhere over Christmas. I packed like all this stuff that I'd eaten 6 months ago. Nothing crazy, but just things I used to eat, and gluten-free things, and like some potato chips that were made with avocado oil, and like now I can't remember what I used to eat. Pistachios, just, you know, random food that did not contain gluten or dairy. And I packed all this, and I'm taking my pills. My first pill was on December 4th of the budesonide, 3 pills a day. So I'm taking this and packing stuff for Christmas and feeling like, yeah, I'll get to have some snacks and whatever. So Christmas comes and goes. I can't eat anything except clear broth over Christmas. I was so sick. I could eat clear broth, a little bit of a smoothie with banana and collagen powder and coconut milk. And I was doing some almond milk then, a little bit of that, and applesauce, unsweet applesauce. And I'd say that's about all I could eat. And I was starving, but I was in so much pain from the anal fissures. I just could not be having diarrhea. I could not. I was in too much pain to be able to even go to the bathroom. So it had to be the least amount possible. So I was just having broth, and that was working, but I was losing weight. And, you know, it's not sustainable. So I'm hoping these pills are going to kick in. They don't do anything. So then after Christmas, whenever my next appointment is, I go back, probably in January. And he's like irritated with me. It's like, you are having something you shouldn't have. You should be doing better. Every patient I have, when they take budesonide for a month or two, they're doing better. You should be gaining weight by now. And and it's COVID, and he's like getting up in my face. Yes, he had his mask on, but he like gets up in my face. And he said, I can't even believe he said this. It's almost embarrassing that he said this. He got right up in my face, and he said, energy drinks. You're drinking energy drinks, aren't you? Energy drinks are full of caffeine. And I almost lost it. Not crying. I almost died laughing that he said that to me. I was just trying to keep a straight face because he was not joking and he was really angry at me. And I was just trying to keep a straight face because I could not believe that this man just got up in my face and told me I must be drinking energy drinks. I just didn't know what to think. So I'm just like, no, I promise you, I am not drinking an energy drink. I have not had anything. You know, I cannot eat. And I'm having, you know, he wouldn't listen to me. He never listened to a word I said, obviously, or he would never have thought that I had energy drink. You know, I don't even get it. It's like he thought I went to McDonald's on the way there. I mean, this is stuff I haven't touched in 5 years, and this man is in my face, confrontational. It's my fault because microscopic colitis isn't something that matters. It's not a big deal. I'm just making too much of it, and I'm obviously sitting around chugging energy drinks, not listening to his advice. So he tells me, what did he tell me? He's so worthless. He's like, okay, I have a stronger drug you can take. It's going to have side effects though. You know, shame on you being so bad. Now you're going to have to take a drug that will have side effects. He's like, at least you haven't had side effects on the budesonide. Sure, it's not working, but at least, you know, that was a good thing. But now you have to take a drug that has side effects. It's a stronger drug. He didn't even tell me the name of it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to just stick with what I'm doing because I'm not feeling too bad. My fissures have healed. I'm, you know, just having my soup and smoothies because he didn't like that I told him I'm eating just a very few things, but I'm feeling good. He didn't like that because I told him if I add any other food, I get sick again. So I'm just being real careful what I eat. And he said, oh, diet doesn't matter. You know, this diet does not matter with this. You don't need to do that. So he said, I said, I'd like to just keep doing the budesonide, and when school's out, at the end of the school year, I'll come back, and then that would be a time you could give me a stronger drug if I'm still not doing well. So that's my appointment coming up on May 20th. You wonder why I go to him? Because I'm in Arkansas in a very rural town, and it's 3 hours to a different GI doctor. This is the only doctor I have that I can go to that's in this area. And there's 2 in his clinic, but they're the only ones. And you can't just see the other one if you're seeing one because it just doesn't work that way. So luckily, we own some property in a different county 3 hours away. And because we have an address there, I can get in to see one of their GI doctors that has a good reputation because, believe me, I asked around about personalities. And I do have an appointment to see that doctor, but it's not until September because it's how long the waiting list is, I guess, if you have a reputation for being friendly. So my thoughts are I'm going to stay on the budesonide on a lower dose. I don't think it's working at all, but maybe it's helping a little. I'll stay on that on a lower dose and just act like it's helping so he doesn't try to give me a stronger drug. And then in September, when I see a doctor I trust, who'll listen to me, hopefully, if they want me to take a stronger drug, I will try it, but not under his guidance at all. I am working with a nutritionalist, and she's actually in the UK, which is nice because I can meet with her at 5 a.m. before school, and she's got me on some supplements that, after looking at some of my blood work, that my regular doctor did. The GI doctor never did anything like that. But she looked at that nutritional panel and got me on some supplements so that at least my nutrition's up. And I'm now eating about 10 different things, meaning some ingredients that go in a soup, some ingredients that go in a smoothie, and I can eat some fish and crab and potatoes. So I am doing well adding in a few more foods at a time. I did read the Microscopic Colitis book that is by, I think it's Wayne Persky something. And I've read their forum. That's what got me through the worst of it. My worst symptoms when I was just in so much pain from the fissures. Their forum got me just eating maybe 5 things just to be able to eat something. So I do appreciate those people. And my main symptom is not stomach pain, but then that's probably because I'm not hardly eating anything. But my main symptom is rectal itching, and nobody else has mentioned that. I don't see that on forums anywhere. But instead of getting the horrible stomach pain I hear people talking about, that they're just can't even go to work, they're in so much pain, that is my symptom. The second I eat something, before I even have to go to the bathroom or anything, if I try something new, like I tried to add eggs in, I tried to add oats in, I've tried to add a few things in, my symptom will be the most severe itching that I can hardly even tolerate it, rectal itching. So to me, that's just a horrible thing to have and to have to deal with. So I don't want to just be experimenting with my diet all the time because I want to feel good. So I'm just eating a few things to get me by, and hopefully I'll have more healing and get to add more things over time. But anyway, thanks for listening to my story. I've really been uplifted and encouraged by the Shay, I think is one lady on there. Seems like they rhymed. It seems just like Shay and Praline. Anyway, one of them is plays a harp, and then one of them I found some of her posts from a couple years ago, and then she started posting again, which to me is like a miracle. I'm like, oh my gosh, she hasn't posted in over a year now that I found somebody. And then she suddenly made a new post. So just reading other people's, watching their videos, reading their Instagram posts, it's encouraging to me to know that it's not just me who's not taken seriously. I feel like microscopic colitis matters, and the medical community just isn't there yet. But those of us suffering with it, obviously we know it does matter. So anyway, guys, thanks for listening. I'll be posting more things about what I'm doing and what helps me. School year's almost out, so I'll have more time to do this soon. Bye.